Welcome to episode 12 of How to Practical Spirituality and Mysticism. And in this episode, I meet once again with Sheel Bhuta, and we discuss star seeds. What are star seeds? How do we know if we are one? How do we connect with our starseed lineage? And we go really deep on this one, so I am so excited to share this information with you. Join us as we dive into outer space. Hi, Sheel. How are you doing today?
I'm so good, Derek. I'm talking to you. How else would it be?
Oh, I love that. I'm so glad we can be back here with each other and we're doing another video. And today we're talking about star seeds and how to know that you're one, what a star seed is and what it means, how to connect with the lineages, just basically everything that can come forward. I would just love to talk with you today about star seeds because I believe that we are both a star seed in our own respect. So, that said, what is your definition of a star seed? Like, what do you think it means to you?
So I feel like everyone is a starseed because we are from just a multitude of dimensions and places, and our soul is so ever abundant. But some of us came here with the remembrance of it. And with the remembrance of it, because we had a purpose to anchor in a different reality into this one. And so, starseed for me has been this awareness where reality is not a reality. Like the current construct of what's normal has never been normal. It feels wrong, right? Like I always used to say growing up, like, and before I knew this, before I was even spiritual, because you're always spiritual, right? But before I was awakened to it, I would always say, like, I feel like I got off on the wrong bus stop on earth. And I'm just like, why am I here? I'm lost. And then you meet people, right? You meet people that kind of resonate with you. Like you don't need to take the time because you're not normal, right? So like you meet people and you don't have to take the normal amount of time to get to know each other because there's just instantaneous knowing, right? You're not caged by the body. You're not caged by the rules of society because you just understand it and you're able to like really taken the magic, right? Like I always think of Once Upon a Time. I don't know if anybody's watched the show, but the beginning of the show is where like Emma Swan can't see it because she doesn't remember it. But the minute she remembers it, she sees how much more is in her diameter, like what is this called, diameter, like around us, her peripherals that she
Mhm.
never saw because she didn't believe it. And so we came in believing, therefore we could see more, and our job in this lifetime is allowing people to open their vision to it because they're all experiencing it, they're just not witnessing it.
Yeah, I strongly agree with that. I believe that everyone is actually a star seed, whether or not they realize it, or that they've, awakened to it. And because I don't believe our souls don't necessarily start here. And I think that people that are considered star seeds are those that have awakened to what their abilities are. I think that's where the title comes in and where the labeling comes in, is that those are the ones that are awakened to what they're here to do, or that they have a bigger purpose. But that said, the ones that came here that aren't awakened to it are still star seeds, and they don't originate from here. None of us originate from here. This is an experience we're having that allows our soul to grow in a very expansive, sometimes very difficult, but mostly all beautiful way. And I think that we all come here with a specific mission, and I do believe that that star seed energy says, you know what, you come from a different star system, you are here to carry out a mission. And looking at the word seed, seeding something new. So when it goes back to what you just said about this birthing of a new reality, things like that, that's where that seed comes into seeding the new reality to help shift, to make the shift take place. Because there are some souls that are within this experience now that haven't actually had a physical earth body incarnation. They have not been human before. They are coming in for the first time as star seeds to do the work, and they don't have necessarily they don't have the ancestral ties to the family lineages. Just because they're in with that family, they can be the one that said, I'm coming in as the new soul to make the shifts and changes for the family. So I think it's just such an interesting thing when we look at star seeds, and what we and everyone is here to do, whether or not they're awakened to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like speaking on that, right? Like, why do star seeds have such a hard life, right? And a lot of them, this is their first time on Earth, or, first few times or whatever it is. And I always like to look at it as like med school, like when you have an accelerated med program, right? It's 7 years. You lose your life for that time, right? Like it's nonstop, it's aggressive. But if you think about the responsibility of a doctor, it's very high, right? Like you have literal people's lives on your hand. So your training is going to be much more aggressive than someone who doesn't have such a big responsibility. And so these people like us, we went through trauma, but that's because we're responsible for a group of people. Our dynamic, our life, our imprint is meant to impact. And you cannot impact unless you've been affected and infected by the world. And so, like, when you realize that and you realize your potency as a human, right? As a human, because that is a big part of being a star seed, is settling into our humanness to understand that this vehicle is a gift, right? Like, a lot of people in this journey want to dismiss the body, right? And I always take it as like, okay, yeah, you could walk all the way to California from New Jersey. Yeah, it's going to take you probably years. I don't know how long that takes. I have no idea. I'm like referencing Forrest Gump in my brain right now. But like, we could take a plane, right? And like your body, and you can take a car. Like this is your vehicle. How is your vehicle going to operate? And as much as you upgrade the vehicle, so your body, as much as you upgrade the body and use different mechanisms, whether that be doing energy work, whether that be working out, eating healthy, whatever it is that you do to this body to activate the portal energy, that's how quickly you can move to the different dimensions of this lifespan. So it's so important as star seeds because, like you said, a lot of us haven't lived here. So like we reject our body. There's a lot of eating disorder issues. There's a lot of different traumas around it because we don't understand what it is to be confined in there. And that's why we have a lot of us will have chronic illnesses. I'm one of them. But the more that I'm tapping into my energy of the etheric world, but grounding in my body's naturally releasing illnesses because I'm integrating the two. I'm making a home for it within my body. And when I do that, I don't have to suffer through the consequences of like knowing what it is to be human. But that's the thing about star seeds, right? We have this wild potential, but we can't activate it until we understand what it is to be human.
And that's why I do believe that when you brought forward the traumas and the heavy experiences that we have, like within the physical reality, whether or not that's our bodies going through a situation, or we're having interactions with partners or friends or family members that are going to teach us those things that we need to activate. Because without those particular events, your sole purpose as a starseed cannot be activated when it needs to. And most people can't figure it out when they're young, because you're just not given that information. But in divine time, everything presents the information that allows the doorway to open and go, hey, this is why you have these really heavy experiences. This is why you were ill. This is why, this is why, this is why. Now that you know this, you're here on a bigger level. They awaken through sometimes traumatic experiences or dreams or meditations, or there's so many different ways that people can wake up to it, but they awaken to it and then they get to choose whether or not they're going to take those life experiences and go, oh, that's why I had really shitty things happen to me when I was young. Oh, that's why that car accident happened. Oh, that's why my house, burned down, whatever the situation is. And we're supposed to take that information, and it's the things that activate us so that we can step into our roles as starseed, the starseed flowers when they when it starts to bloom, when the seed blooms.
Pollinate.
Yeah, when it's time for
Pollinate.
us to do so. So I really love that you brought forward that. There's something else you said at the beginning, was that people don't feel like they belong here. Like you said, it doesn't feel like we belong here, or some people don't feel right in their bodies, or they don't understand why people treat each other. I have done so many regressions on people that could not understand why they were so different and unique. They couldn't help but think differently. They couldn't help but look at the world differently. And what it caused is this viewpoint about themselves that was negative, as if it was wrong, as if they were the one that was like the like when we think about the odd one out or the black sheep, they look at it, the black sheep idea, in a very negative way because of the way society has created this persona about them. And I love that within a regression situation, I can flip that for them and I go, oh, but you see, you're looking at it all wrong. The
Mm.
black sheep is actually the special one, is the one that came in to make the change. You were supposed to be different. You were supposed to feel uneasy in your physical body. You were supposed to feel like you didn't belong with the rest because it was always teaching you that you came here for a bigger purpose. So when you were saying that, I love that you brought that forward because I think people watching that will help them ground how they see themselves.
I love that so much. And I always say, like, a lot of us, no, all of us are Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeers, right? Like,
Mm,
we're different,
mm-hmm.
but we have a light because we're meant to guide.
Yeah.
And so, yes, things that are different look, people make fun of it, but that's why we're here. And I keep thinking of the word star seed, and you talked about seeding, right? In order to seed, we need to have an elevated perspective. So, stars, like, go to the stars, elevate your perception of the world, because in doing so, you change the dynamic of what you're experiencing, right? Because there's so many ways to look at anything, right? Like, you can look at rain and be like, oh, it ruined my day. Or you could look at rain and say, oh my gosh, it's nourishing the grass. I love the way it smells. Oh, I have a day to rest. I don't need to go, and like, there's so many ways to look at rain or snow. Like, I love snow. I absolutely, I become such a child with snow, but so many people are like, oh, it's snowing, it gets dirty. But like, for a moment in time, the world is just blanketed by beauty. For a moment in time, you get time to just like be in this presence, and it looks beautiful and it feels beautiful, and like the moonlight reflects upon it, and it's just so bright whenever it snows. It doesn't even feel like the sun goes down when it snows because the light is reflected off the snow. So yes,
Mm-hmm.
it put a pause, but there's a reflection that you wouldn't be able to see otherwise. Like, it's constantly bright when it snows. And so I think that's what star seeds have to really step into, is how am I perceiving this situation? How am I utilizing it for my growth? Because nothing in this entire world is a punishment. There are no such things as mistakes. You were born as a miracle, and you're meant to create miracles. And so, like, yes, like, I know a lot of the people I work with, they'll be like, I don't feel like I belong here. I don't think I'm from here. And I know that I felt that way, but no, you're right. You're not from here, but you're for here. And that's why you're here. So how do you use your potential to help activate other people's potential, right? Like, everything was weird unless someone made it work. And then they made it work and everybody followed suit. Like, even
Uh-huh.
look at fashion, right? Like, I'm not a big fan of this whole mom jean craze, but guess what? Everybody started wearing it and I bought a pair, right? Like, someone decided this is what we're gonna do, right? Like, own it. Own it. We're trendsetters, right? Like, you're not meant to fit in. We don't have the luxury to fit in, but we also have the gift of not fitting in, because you are paving your own road. You are paving the road for other people. And that's why it has to be a little bit harder, because how else are you going to be like, I want more? How else are you ever going to want more? If you really look at people, because I work with a dynamic of people, like, when you look at people who had it moderately easy their whole life, there's a lull of unhappiness because there's no passion. Like, what activates your passion? If you look at children, it's not exciting until they start walking. Do you know how many times kids fall and they'll get frustrated, but they learn how to get up again? Their reflexes ignite. They ignite because they're learning what it's like to fall. They learn what it's like to push on this end. They learn this. And so, as star seeds, we activate our reflex potential by the way we fall. And that's how we teach other people, like, oh, if you move this way, or you do this, or you put your hips on this, that's why that happened. And everything we go through is a teaching opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every single thing. There is no blame. And I feel like we were brought here because we're in the remembrance of the love that we are. And it
Mm-hmm.
takes a level of love to not place blame. It takes a level of love for yourself to not let yourself fall down that hole of desperation and hate and whatever else. And that's love for yourself and love for humanity, because both are the same. We come from the same place. And so when you are from the star area, it's almost impossible for you to hate people. You always come back to like, well, what are they going through? Right?
Hmm.
And the minute you say, what are they going through? You've now got to a star perspective, right? You're not in the lull of the day to day. You've now said, how can I elevate this so I see from the stars? How do I illuminate this so I can see better into this life?
Hmm. You brought up a really good thing that just like hit me, and that was the baby trying to walk and how they get frustrated, but they get back up again. And I was like, in my head, I hear they get back up again because they don't know judgment. And so they don't mind trying and trying again because they don't know judgment. They don't sense judgment. They don't see somebody judging them, and they're not worried about what other people think of them. So they keep trying. It doesn't matter. And it's only the judgments that we begin to allow ourselves to be impeded by and we agree to as we're growing up that stop us from getting up again and going because people think that they fail, and then they fail, so it's no good, and then they think everybody's watching them see them be a failure. But if nobody else existed, you'd still keep trying to get up like the baby. You'd
Yeah.
still get up because you wouldn't be worried about that thing. And I think that's such a powerful thing you said along with this. I know this is kind of a side tangent from it, but it's such a big message that if you can tap into the baby keeps trying to get up until the damn thing walks.
They
Because
fall.
it doesn't know, yeah, and it falls, but it doesn't care. It will get up again. It doesn't say, well, I guess we're not doing this one this time, this go around. I'll just
Today was
crawl.
not the day. That's okay. Yeah.
They keep doing it. So it's just such a valuable lesson to tune into. A baby gets up because they don't know judgment. So I can get up too.
Exactly. Well, it's not judgment and it's excitement. When you
Yeah.
don't have judgment and you're excited,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
can stop you, right? Like, what is the joy of the journey? Like, honestly, like, I could put something like Scar. So the baby I nanny for was like not feeling well today, but like I shook like a water bottle in front of her, and she was so excited to grab the water bottle. She didn't care, and she didn't feel well that day. She was just hype because
Yeah.
this thing instigated her. It inspired her, and I think
Hmm.
that's not the problem. But the thing that we need to heal as we get older is that even if we're not feeling good, it's okay to feel good for a moment, even if we don't feel good. If something made us feel good, we can switch gears.
Yeah.
Why is it as adults we feel like we need to dig our heels in into feeling
Identity.
bad? Why is that? Like it's like we invested time being angry, so now I need to.
Yep.
What are
It,
you committed to? Be
it's an
committed to the
identity.
moment. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Because people want to identify with somebody and then they want to lock into that vibration, and then they want everything to reflect all that so that they have more ammunition to back up the fact that they're in that space. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's so true though. Like and I think that's powerful. Like I'm not big on labels, right? But I think it's so powerful to own the label of Starseed, right? Because when you
Hmm.
own the label of Starseed, you get to say I'm above all this. I'm higher than this. I have a purpose. So everything that happens to me is a gift because I chose this. It's this understanding of divinity within you that you are source energy, that you are a part of the stars, right? And to own that, it's so hard to fail. It is almost impossible to fail when you have this perception of yourself and you have this perception of other people. No, you're not any better than anyone else, but you're better than you think you are. And when you realize that I am better than I think I am, that's when you level up. It's the ability to level up. It's the ability to try and try again and to do more and like to invest in having the tomorrow show up. It's the investment in today being different than yesterday. It's the investment in this moment being everything it could possibly be, irregardless, because yesterday's an illusion and tomorrow's an illusion. They don't exist. All that matters is this very moment. And if I own the responsibility of being a star seed, then I take this moment more seriously. This moment has to be ceremonious because I am divinity. Just as much like, when you're Hindu, we have a lot of ceremonies. We wash our like statues of God and we do this thing. We clothe them. My grandmom's always making clothes for him. And during special holidays, she makes a backdrop and it's beautiful. But you know what? We're divinity too. How are we celebrating ourselves? How are we clothing ourselves? How are we honoring ourselves? How are we nourishing and cleansing ourselves? Because we are the same divinity as the thing that we worship. And so when you realize that, then you realize that your divinity, you realize the divinity of everyone else because no one's different than you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the point of this journey, is knowing that we are everything we seek.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that um when you say, when we're thinking about star seeds and we're seeing it from that higher perspective and then owning the label of being a star seed, you do see it from a higher perspective, and you see that everyone else is also a star seed along with you, and that higher level of consciousness. And it's not saying it's better than any other level, it's just saying it's just in a faster vibration of consciousness. I'll say that so we can differentiate between, and it's not judgment, it's just what it is. Faster vibration of consciousness, you're able to see things in a space of wholeness rather than in a space of separation, and it allows you to embrace and have compassion um, for everyone else, that for yourself and for all others. So along with that, how do you think people, like, what do you think a main trait is of being a star seed? Or like, how would people know that they're a star seed? Like, for example, I would say if you're a humanitarian and you care about like if you're a doctor, or if you've been called like passionately a doctor, a therapist, something within the healing field, regardless if it's Eastern, Western medicine, something in those places where you're a humanitarian, I would say that's definitely a star seed. Somebody who came in to help others is definitely one. But what would you say?
I love that. But I also think it's inquisitive.
Mm.
Inquisitive. It's this wonder. Have you kept your wonder alive throughout life? Because that's obviously a sign,
Mm.
right? Like, are you curious? Are you curious about life in a loving way, right? Like, do you see things more vividly? And when I say that, like, I don't think that I've ever looked at the sky and just saw it as a sky, right? I'm like, what shape? It's something as silly as making shapes out of clouds, right? Because you're paying more attention. Are you more in awareness? Do you feel different? Because that is one of the main signs. You feel like, oh, there's something different, or like something doesn't make sense. Like, I remember being younger and being like, I just want to like I want to open this dynamic. Like, I literally would look at the sky and be like, how do I open this? Like, how do I open it? And I remember feeling that so aggressively and not knowing what it meant. Like, I like felt like I could crawl through reality. You know what I mean? And like,
Hmm.
it's kind of the feeling. And I know this sounds dense, but like, remember the Truman Show?
Hmm.
I feel like the Truman Show is how light workers feel. Like, you realize that there's something that's been planned. And in that, it was negative. But in this, it's positive because you planned it for your own soul growth. Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's understanding, like, oh, there's something more here. There's something more for me. I care about people. Forget even if you didn't have a humanitarian, like, yeah, that's one of the main signs that you're living your purpose, is having a humanitarian life. But do you look at people with love? Like, are you curious about people? Are you curious about birds? Are you curious? Like, do you just pay attention to things and notice
Hmm.
things? And like, it's a little romanticism, isn't it? Like, it's a little
Hmm.
bit romantic the way that you view life. You're just intimate.
And it's again, you like, we're talking about this curiosity, but this love for those things, like a love for all that curiosity, the things that you're curious, you're like, just love that for some reason. Love is a sure sign that you have come in to instill more of that energy here within the planet, without that the without fear attached to it, and you're just like, I just have love for these things. That is, if and it's curiosity, but I see the love within the curiosity of everything that you're saying. So I think that's a great way for people to see that they are. There's a lot of different ways, but the curiosity is, it's like, what are you curious about? Are you really connected to nature? Like, if you're really connected to nature and the way that the plants move, and there's people that communicate with the plants and the trees and they don't tell anybody because they think that they're going to be silly, right? There's so many more than I even knew actually already talk to the trees, and they don't let anybody know. But that's a sure sign. If you really connect with the beauty, with beauty overall, and beauty of nature, and beauty of human beings, of animals, of all the things, you're tuned into a higher vibration, a higher frequency, and you can, better be sure that that's part of your signature. You're supposed to bring beauty and love and curiosity and reinstill it back into this society, into our world dynamic, to help shift the energy of what was.
I love that because you made me think of like another sign would be geeking out about something. And what I mean by that is to be so passionate about something and excited about something. That's your purpose. Like what you're passionate about is literally your calling. So like
Yeah.
we're talking about nature and people, but it was like even tech programmers, like
I
people
was
that are
just gonna say
yeah,
science stuff. Yeah.
yeah, like it's like, are you geeking out about something, right? Like we talk about ADHD being a bad thing, but like one thing about my ADHD that has been so powerful is that like when I focus on something, I'm at super speed of understanding it and honing in it and like materializing it, right? Like integrating it quickly. So is
Mm-hmm.
it really a curse or is it a gift?
Mm-hmm. That's why I don't see all of those labels for mental awareness, I'm going to say, as a thing that is necessarily negative. I think that when people didn't know what to call and they didn't know what to do with a person, they're going to be like, they have this. And then that creates this label and this energy around it. But anyone that has any kind of these mental symptoms, I can see through it. I've always been, I'm like, no, they're tapped into something else. I was like, the rocking that guy's doing, he's tapped into the rhythm of the universe. I was like, they're pulling out, and that one's pulling in so much information. They just aren't being taught how to ground it, and no one's supporting that. So then people are just like, I don't know what to do with you. Here's your label, and then it creates a whole mentality around that. And so when you say that, you're like, no, it's like I'm able to process information quickly. And that's really what it is. It's like, okay, on to the next thing, because you're meant to do something with it. And so I love that you brought forward the tech stuff, because when in my head I was like, scientists. I don't know if scientists really, because they're so fixated on the science of things that they don't even realize that that whole ability comes from other star systems that they came in with to instill in this planet. And it's awesome that they're moving in that direction with quantum mechanics and physics, but they don't fully realize that you're that smart because your soul has been on a whole nother level before.
Well, like think about it. Like they Einstein said the highest form of intelligence is intuition. I read before that he came up with E equals MC squared in like meditation, and like they
Mm,
still can't figure out how he came up with that. And it's just that's the thing though, right? Like I think of Gene Roddenberry and coming up with like Star Trek and all this. I'm like, how did someone come up with that? There was no computers really back then. Like, how did you come up with 3D printing that now exists? How did
mm,
you come up with a lot of the technology that now exists? No, we can't go to, maybe we can go to space. I'm not really sure. I haven't kept up with the times yet. Like, I think that we can. I know we can go to space, but I mean, like, everybody in that. Well, but
yeah.
someone came up with that in here.
Boop.
That, yeah, it was literally
It was dropped in. Boop.
this information, make the blueprint of what can happen in the future. Think about concocting that level of electronics or technology before it even exists, before FaceTime exists, before any of those things exist. They
Yeah.
concocted it. That was not imagination, it was intuition, right?
Yeah.
Like nothing is impossible. The ability to see it is the ability to create it. And so it's understanding that these people that come up with that, it's not from nowhere. That's intuition. Whether you realize that you're operating from a place of intuition, you are. And the minute that you decide to own your intuition, your fruition of things are going to come that much quicker. You
Hmm.
either work at this level or tap into your full spectrum of abilities and move at a rapid pace.
And intuition is connected to the spiritual ether. That's
Mhm.
like that. It's faith. It's faith in the unseen. It's faith in the energy that we have around us, wanting to give us that information, wanting to, but if we're not open to it, and Einstein was open to it, he opened his field up to receive that information, trusting it and actually grounding it, because everything starts as a thought form. Anything that is in reality is a thought form. And especially like obviously Einstein was a star seed. I think he knew he was a star seed before the label could be given, and that's why he was grounding this information. He was tuned into the higher frequencies. He knew what was going on, and he was brilliant. And so we're getting that, but when we talk about that intuition, it's like, yeah, but that's our plug. Our intuition is our plug in to spirit. And whether or not, if that channel is clear or not, or muddied up by a bunch of old patterns, belief systems, judgments, fears, and all the like. So there's so many people that have these connections that are here. Now, when it comes to where we're saying, oh, information comes from somewhere or star lineages. Now, there are believed to be different star systems that have beings. Some may consider them extraterrestrials or light beings or future versions of us or whatever you want to say. But they connect there, and in meditation and in dreams, and in past life regressions, they're having connections with these star people that, and then different people are bringing forward this information of what they kind of look like, what energy they have, and it's all coinciding with each other's information. So when it comes to that, I know that I didn't know I would be connecting with people from other star systems. When I started connecting, it was angelics, angels were flying in. It was a whole thing. Not even like grandma and grandpa, but it was like angelic, right? And then that started transferring over, and that shifted into what people would call extraterrestrial beings. But to me, they just looked like people with different looking faces and bodies and colors, right? But now that we look at it, we would call it extraterrestrial. And these beings would come from all of these different star systems that you're hearing about people connect with as star seeds. You're talking about the Pleiades, you're talking about Arcturus, Lyrans, Andromedans. I mean, you're Orion. You're talking about all these different energies. And so it can get really confusing to people. Like for me, with all these different entities coming forward, I didn't want to get lost in figuring out who they were, what they were supposed to be doing, what the energy is, because it can get very overwhelming or confusing with so many.
Mhm.
Some people have one being that will work with them, like an Arcturian guide.
Mhm.
So when they have these beings coming forward for them, and they're like, let's say you have an Arcturian guide, why would you have, why in your opinion or in your experience do you have one Arcturian guide that is working with you to give you information? Like, why do you think it is one being, or this extraterrestrial race would work with you as a starseed?
I think it's a readiness, right? And I didn't know what I was going to answer. And like they said, it's readiness. It's what you're able to comprehend. It's the level and the capacity. Like, what is your learning style, right? I'm a teacher. So some kids need the bells and whistles, right? And so like they need to, they're auditory, they're sensory, like all this stuff. And so when all these people are teachers, and so some people need to learn one-on-one. And so you'll have one person that speaks a language that's connected to you because you understand it. It's not that you can't connect with all of them, but they want you to really master this one person, and they have the work for you because it's a soul contract. We think of soul contracts with humans, but we have soul contracts with angels, with gods and goddesses, with the spirit world, with the the extraterrestrial or the star seeds. And so during the time, that's your contract. That's the school you're going to at that time. You
Mm-hmm.
chose to go to that school, and that's the teacher you were connected with, or maybe a guidance counselor, right? So you have
Yeah.
one guidance counselor that's following you
Yeah.
as you take these other tests, but you batched with him. That was the guidance counselor allotted to you because he knew that this is how you needed to be guided to the different classrooms. Like he gets to tell you, take that class, take this course,
Mm-hmm.
this. Oh, you didn't do well on it? That's okay. This is what you need to get your credits, right? Like, and it's very similar to going to school. I always say that when I go to sleep, I don't feel rested sometimes because I'm going to school in the other realm. But it's nothing personal. Some people, it's just that that's where you are right now. And that's the best teacher for you in that moment. And embracing that. And like you said, it gets overwhelming. And it's funny because when I met you, I got more clarity on who I was talking to and how, and like really understood it. That being said, I was working with them for so long, and a lot of people would be like, what's their name? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even ask. I don't care. Because I don't care. I feel the love that they have. I hear what they're saying. And so they're moving me. What's the point of labeling them when I understand them? They understand me. There's a love between us, and we're getting the work done. The needing to know is ego based. And like you might know effortlessly. And the minute you don't need to know, you just automatically know. Like, oh, that's a name. That's the name. There's so many times that we talk. I'm like, what's this name to you? And you'll be like, oh, that's this person. You know what I mean? Like it
Mm-hmm.
comes up naturally because I generally don't care. And it's not out of not caring because it's not important. I don't care because everything's so important that it's irrelevant to me to need to know details because the details will get lost in the bigger picture. Like the bigger picture is so much more important. And so some people have such awareness because that's how they're meant to guide. You're meant to guide people in this very intrinsic way. I'm meant to help people to get into a state of portal energy, right? And so obviously my way of learning is the way that I'm meant to teach. And so whatever way you're receiving information, don't try to tailor that to the way someone else experiences it, because then you're going to manipulate the way and damage the way you're going to relay that information to the people you're meant to help, because it always is. You only need to learn until you become a teacher. But if you're trying to learn in a way that you're not meant to learn, then you're not going to be able to teach in the way that you're meant to teach. And then the people that you meant to teach are going to suffer. And so it's really honing in to what's coming in naturally, right? So it's about that. Sorry, I went on and did that.
And you know what I think is that when there are beings that are connecting with us, especially when we see an extraterrestrial energy or being like that, a light being, and I believe that they are us. I think, it's like us coming through, because in that timeline, there's no limitations by the physical body that we have, where we can still take our consciousness and travel out astral projection. We can go into other dimensions, all the stuff. But with them, it's a lot easier for them to connect with their soul counterpart, which is us, which is why they are us in a different timeline coming to assist us. So it's us helping us. And they do have specific information that is relevant to the time that we're in. It comes from where we are vibrationally at this moment, which is why we're connecting with specific beings that will instill the advisory information, the counseling, and the stuff that we need to know now. But you made a really good point, is that the naming isn't necessarily very important. It's the vibrational energy connecting the heart frequency to that being. And that's why even when channeling and doing trance channeling work, I can go in and I can be like, I can sense the energy from different beings. So if it's an angel, I can say, oh, this is this angel. And I'll still confirm, though. I'll literally say, is this, just to make sure I'm definitely connecting with
Mhm.
who, and that I'm claiming that it's this being, because there are a lot of different beings,
Yep.
and they all have different vibrational frequencies that feel different. And the same goes for, like, when Sheel and Derek meet, the vibrational frequency that works together and bounces off each other is going to be different than Sheel and somebody else that's going to feel that. And so the vibrational energy that clicks in is going to be a different experience. That's why even when I'm practicing to read the Akashic records, I'll go in, and if I'm reading for you, you're going to feel, your records will feel different than the lady that I did the other day. It feels differently. So you have a specific vibrational energy with your record, with your energetic signature. So it's really cool to connect with these beings, but not to get too lost in what's going on. If you're not given information, it means that ain't important to you. So go with what you got,
Mind your
work
business.
with it. Yeah, and then mind your business. It's you, so just call it you. And if
Yeah.
you want to give it a name, call it Bianca or Bethany or Gerald. And you can
Mhm.
call it whatever you want to call it, because they don't care.
Yep.
It's the vibration that's the important aspect of it.
Mhm.
But for some people, that said, knowing if there's a Pleiadian collective, Arcturian collective, a certain consciousness, like the whale and dolphin consciousness, the fairy conscious, whatever the level is, for people to have some kind of understanding, some people do need to do that for their ego organization.
Mhm.
So I understand those things, but it's also not necessary. So if you're a person and you're not getting clear information about if it's the Orion people, it's not necessary. They don't care. They're just giving you the information to help your soul with what your starseed mission is here.
Absolutely. And I think you said something really important is discernment. While you're on this path, have discernment, because a good way to figure out what person or place or thing you're speaking with and connecting with is understanding what your vibration is. The minute you understand what your vibration is and what feels good for you, you'll know what's not resonant with you by it not feeling good, because there are a lot of different beings and there's ones that just make me feel like, oh, and I'll have to tell them, nuh-uh, no, this isn't, I'm not here for you. Like, You don't
Hmm.
feel good. And it's the same as like humans, right? And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with people or even these beings. It's just they're not for you. And it's so important to know who you are, what feels good and what doesn't feel good, and why they don't feel good. Is it trauma don't feel good, or does it actually not feel good? Because you need to figure out why it doesn't feel right. Does it just not feel right? Is it not natural for you? Or is it triggering you? Because if it's triggering you, it is for you. If it's
Hmm.
triggering you, then it's very important for you to embrace and explore and call on the help that you have, because you're never alone. But if it just doesn't feel right, that's okay too. Like for me, it feels bored sometimes. Like for me, I feel annoyed and I'm like, oh, I'm never annoyed. So like, I know this isn't for me. I literally love everything.
No, me too. Like if
Yeah.
I go, you're annoying, like this is annoying me. Like can you go away? You're literally annoying me when I want to connect with these higher frequency beings and you're coming in here with this.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know, I get
You're annoying.
annoyed.
You're annoying me. That is literally, I was like, why am I like, I'm not an annoyed person. I'm wildly patient with people. Like I'm sassy, but I'm patient. Like there's very few things that annoy me. But when I start to get annoyed, I'm like, oh, like our auras aren't jamming. They're like friction. They're frictioning together. And so that friction is just like, nah, just do your own thing, boo. Like this isn't
Yeah.
this isn't
But
synergy. We don't grow
yeah,
together.
but you made a good point about the triggering. So in a regression, someone started to see themselves as a reptilian entity, and they did not want to see that, even though the being was great. They were an explorer, it was amazing. However, because they were triggered with something that went on with them, they didn't want to actually see that that's what they were in another reality, when because of their idea. And that was what the teaching was: break down the idea that you have around this, because when you see a reptilian being, don't listen to what everyone's saying out there about reptilians. Listen to your inner guidance. Are you a negative person? Are you a bad person? Is what's unfolding in your vision actually negative, or are you just being triggered? Because there are reptilian beings who live in the Pleiades, who live in Arcturus. Don't like put a label. I'm getting a wave down my body for that too. So that one's really important for people to hear. Don't put a label. Just like you can relocate from California to New Jersey, beings can relocate from Nibiru to the Pleiades, you know?
Yeah, I think that's so important that you said that, right? Because we've been talking about that for the last month. And I think that's really important for the collective. Stop labeling people. People are fluid. Change is inevitable. Literally, like my favorite quote, I think it's Oscar Wilde. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to look it up. But every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the dynamic of the world. Like you're meant to change, you're meant to
Mm-hmm.
evolve. And you know what? It's a disservice to humanity the minute you put a label on somebody. Like you put them in a box and you literally tie the jar shut, and then
Mm-hmm.
why they're suffocating you. You're suffocating them. You are literally suffocating people when you decide that they're bad. And you also suffocate with them when you tell them they're good, right? You're allowed to let people be, because everything is good. Everything is good and bad and all the same, but everything is perfect. As it is, it's perfect. That's a role they have to play. That's who they have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you understand that, you stop judging and embrace it for what it is. Like I actually worked with a little girl. She's my favorite. Um, I'm such a beautiful kid. She explained all the kids shows to me, right? So we were watching Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and like one of the guys, like the guy that's evil on Goofy, the Goofy movie. Remember that guy? Like he's supposed to be the bad guy, and I was like, oh, is he the bad guy? And she said to me, no, he's not bad. He just does bad things sometimes. And that was she's a starseed. That's the most
Yeah.
beautiful, profound statement. People do bad things, but that's also a part of the growth they're meant to
Mm-hmm.
experience with you. Because as we said in the beginning, everyone who triggers you and hurts you is the greatest gift to you and your purpose. And so
Mm-hmm.
you need to understand that they are divine vessels. We look at people who are gifted. You're an angel in my life, Derek. You have helped me so much. But so is the person that hurt me. They're an angel in my life too, because I don't know who I would be if I didn't go through what I went through. I
Mm-hmm.
would not care as much as I do. I would not have the depth that I do to fill with light if I had not been like completely carved out with pain. Do you know what I mean? And so now I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Like I don't know what it's like to have a bad day, because even my bad days have good in them because of all the pain that I've experienced. I have a capacity to fill with this high resonance of light. And I think it's so important to not put labels on the people you see, because everyone has the capacity to be good. And that's the power of a star seed as well, is that you seed people. So when you say they're bad, you're seeding bad into their future. So now you are also a facilitator of fate for them doing more wrong in their future, because you have seeded that within them. And so if
Hmm.
you seed that this person is light, this person is good, you have now seeded that. Maybe they're not acting that way right now because that's a part of their soul journey and a part of the growth for the people they're interact with. But you are now seeding them becoming this expanded light being by just simply believing that it exists within them.
Yes. Oh, like that, I think I want to just leave this whole thing at that because that was really good. And that's very important to know because that's going to change. I hope people are taking notes when they're watching this. Maybe I'll have to put it in the note thing, like take notes because there's some good stuff. But I really think that, because people do want to understand what a starseed is, how the different ways it can look, if they're one, they have all these questions. I wanted to just see what kind of came up organically with us as we began to talk, because whatever that is what people need to hear today. And the last thing I just want to leave it with is saying, like, if you want to connect with your star families, your star lineage, if you want to understand your star seed self here, Sheel said one a very important thing, and that was to really know yourself and understand yourself. Because when you do that, you're going to vibrate at the resonance with the things that are waiting for you on the other side. But you have to step into that power with yourself in order to access those beings, those vibrations, and that information. And when you do, when you step into that place of your personal power and knowing, you can make the request and go into a meditation, do it in a dream world, send it out even wide awake. I'm ready to connect with with the star families that are working with me right now. And it's really that simple. And then just let it go and let them begin to make contact with you and be really open to what that looks like. But it's really that simple. I am ready. I am that affirmation. I am ready to connect with my star families that are working with me at this time. And then just be open and let it go. Is there anything you have to add to that?
I think that's perfect because it just actually made me realize how I attracted it without knowing. I have so many journals that I just wrote, I am ready. I didn't even know what I
Mm,
was ready for. I just
yeah.
said, I am ready. I wrote it down in 15, I must have 50 different journals and none of them are finished, but every single one of them has I'm ready on a piece of paper. And I just didn't know what it meant. But that's the beauty of all of this. You don't need to cognitively understand why you're doing it, but if you feel called to do it, I just think of take off your mask. If you have a mask on, people can't find you. At the end of the day, they can't find you. So take
Yeah.
it off so people recognize you. And I think one of the most important things is be childlike. You and me, Derek, we got along because we were so weird the minute we interacted. I was like, you know what I envisioned? I said this to Derek. This was one of the first things I said that was wildly inappropriate if you really think about it. I was like, Derek, I just like envision us being in pajamas and like watching movies and frolicking. Like I feel like we should wear hoodie footy pajamas and just like play. But like that was like that's so weird that I said that to you like day two. Like that's so and like, but because of it, we activated this potential between us that every time we talk, I can feel my ancestors, my lineage, my star seed family, like all of different versions of me activated when we hang out. And you feel the same way, and people feel the same way when we interact because we're so childlike in the way we respond and interact and relay to each other, right? We
Mhm.
relate at a very innocent level, and the innocence activates your potential.
It does. That child, do you have that card with you that you pulled? The child of the cosmos one?
I'm gonna find it.
Uh, because it's
Wait,
like literally what we're closing out with is this
wait,
idea of
wait, stop.
of being a child of the stars.
We are children. We're always meant to stay children. But what did pop out, that didn't pop out, but I thought this was so perfect. Oh shit. Oh, sorry, Chris.
Yeah, there you go.
It says dance with life.
Mm,
Look at that. That is what you're meant to do. The moon is behind that, but they're still normal. They're still
mhm.
normal. They're still enjoying life. You are a child, be childlike. Like the best way to know that if someone's mature is their ability to prioritize having fun.
Yeah. It really is the key. And just like the little kid that kept getting up because they wanted to stand and they didn't think about what anybody else was thinking of them. They just knew what they wanted and they did it with unwavering faith. And that's what allows success for you to fulfill your mission here, what you're called to do as a star seed. And if anybody's watching this, because it's literally going to be called Starseed, then you are that person. And so that this is the biggest way and easiest way, if you want it to be, to access your starseed potential and your power and activate your true abilities is by dancing with life, being open and free, and remembering what it's like to be playful like a child. And not only that, it keeps you young and beautiful.
Totally does. You glow. And I love that because I want to reiterate it because what you said was so powerful. Go after what sparks your interest. Just go after it full force. Kids could see a literal stick in the corner of the room, literally a crumb. Let's forget stick because a stick is too big. They literally could see a little shadow of a crumb and they run towards it and play with it because it
Yeah.
caught their attention. So go towards the things that catch your attention because they're breadcrumbs from the universe. And so follow that, follow it with full enthusiasm because that momentum you create in pursuing something, no matter how little or big or whatever it is, it's going to let you reach that new level of experience and really get to the next chapter that much more beautifully. Like, how are you opening the new door? Are you opening it with timidness or are you opening it with enthusiasm? Because that's how you're going to create the new reality.
Amazing. Ah, beautiful. This was so wonderful. I'm really glad we literally I was like, do you want to just do this today? And then we are like, here we are.
Let's tell the full story. You were on a treadmill and you're like, I think we should do it. And that
Yeah.
was right. But you pursued it. You pursued it. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, I'm in.
And here we are. And I knew that this had to come forward today. So thank you so much for your time and your energy and your wisdom and your downloads, and your Jesus coming through the backside of your head in the
Thank
clouds.
you. The dynamic right
Your
now.
ancestors, your cloud friends, and all of your guides that stepped forward. Mine are all in pillars of blocks of light. And that's you, Starseed, walking through the gateway of your own power potential.
Wait, we both have staircases.
Mm-hmm.
So his is the cosmos and mine's Earth.
Mm-hmm.
That is the dual. And we did not do that on purpose. We just happened to pick two that both had star cases. Star cases. Star cases!
Star cases. Star
Is
cases. Because you're the star keeper.
we are star keepers. I can't find the child of the cosmos.
That's okay. We told them what it was.
We did. We told you. And dance. Have a love affair with life. Dance with somebody. It doesn't matter who, just dance anyway.
Mm-hmm. All right, everybody. We will see you soon because this ain't the end of it. We're going to come back with so much more information as the time calls for it. So thank you so much and have a wonderful time. See you soon. Bye, Sheel.
Bye, love.